Hey Roanoke, thank you for joining me today for another great episode of If You Noke You Know, a municipal podcast brought to you by the City of Roanoke. I'm your host, Carol Corbin, and you know I'm bringing you all things Roanoke. Here on If You Noke You Know, we go behind the scenes and we learn about the good and interesting things happening around Roanoke and introduce you to some of the amazing people who serve our community and how the work they do impacts both you and our city. And we know neighborhoods are an important part of any city. They are the background to people's life stories. They are both a geographic place and a feeling of community. And now, National Neighborhood Month is in May. National Night Out is in August, and the city's annual neighborhood awards are in December. But instead of waiting for any of these months to come, we are jumping into neighborhoods today. And we are going behind the scenes with one of my community engagement teammates, Neighborhood Services Coordinator, Molly Hunter. Welcome to the neighborhood, Molly.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. On If You Noke You Know, we really want our listeners to learn more about what's happening in Roanoke, but also shine a light on the awesome people who are working here. So we like to have our guests introduce themselves so we get to know you a little bit better. So Molly, please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, listeners. I'm Molly Hunter. I am originally from Iowa. I moved here about 2 years ago to be closer to family, and I am new to the city as of September, working for the city. So, yeah, I live here with my partner, Zach, and our cat, Buffy. Really love hiking. And I really love neighborhoods. I was drawn to the position because I saw, before I started, I was working for the newspaper, and I went to a lot of community engagement events.
Sure. And
I saw that there was a real need for somebody to be in this role, which I think we can all agree, that having somebody in this role is really important to kind of do the day-to-day touch base with the neighborhoods, make sure that they're feeling heard, and communicate their needs back to the city. So I was really drawn to this position because of that.
Okay, before we get into work, let's take a sidebar pause. So who is Buffy named after?
Buffy is actually named after her color. Okay. She's a buff cat, but I know we got her from, yes, buff is a color of a cat, but okay. We got her from this really old woman who was going into residential care, so she couldn't keep Buffy anymore. And I assume that she can't possibly have been named after Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but that would be way cooler.
It's where I was going, but you threw me for a loop. I like that. And today we are learning something. Buff is the color of a cat. Yep. Okay. So jumping back into neighborhoods, let me ask you a question specifically about the city. So how many neighborhoods are in Roanoke, like just approximately?
Roanoke has, we'll say 35 neighborhoods.
Okay.
But about 20 active neighborhood associations.
Okay. So there's some room for growth for people to get more involved with the places that they live in.
Absolutely. We really need more people in Northeast Roanoke, in the Preston Park area. There's a big just empty space when I map out our neighborhood associations just around Preston Park. So anybody around Preston Park who wants to get involved, hit me up. There's also a real need for more organized activity, I would say, in Southeast. I Heart Southeast is amazing, but they're a really informal group, and that works really, really well for them. But there are a lot of apartment communities and rental communities in Southeast that aren't necessarily covered by our I Heart Southeast, because apartment communities, and this is true throughout the entire city, apartment communities are kind of insular, right? When we think of neighborhood, we don't automatically think of rentals, but sure, those people are also living in our city and they are part of a neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Apartment communities are another really great place where we could do some growth.
Okay. So in thinking about organized neighborhood associations, how do you work with those associations? What is that relationship like between the city and neighborhood services and the actual organizations?
The functional part of the relationship can be very different. Like I Heart Southeast, for example, is super informal. They don't have regular meetings, but they pluck every Tuesday. So if I need to get in touch with them, I will either contact one of their members or I'll go plucking with them. And that's just a super informal, like, hey, 2 minutes at the end of every pluck, here's what's going on. Then on the other side of the spectrum, you have groups that are really, really formal and organized and have a very formal structure. Like I would say Old Mountain Road Neighborhood Association and Neighborhood Watch is an example of that. They meet very regularly. They, really stick to their bylaws. That's a really important part of their neighborhood culture to them. And I go to their meetings religiously. So it really depends on how the neighborhood wants to interact with the city, and I kind of meet them where they're at. But on a more essential level, the interactions that I have are pretty much the same neighborhood to neighborhood. It's a lot of concerns about parking and streets and sidewalks and lighting and things like signs. People are really concerned about speeding in certain neighborhoods. So I basically just connect everybody with the city resources that they need in order to resolve those issues or, bring potential new opportunities to their neighborhood. Gainsborough is a really great example of that. I'm doing a lot of work with planning to engage the Gainsborough and historic Gainsborough neighborhood groups so that we can work on some ARPA funding that we have in that area.
So essentially, it all depends on the needs of the neighborhood and what the neighborhood wants to get out of their relationship with the city. Because as a liaison, whatever their concerns or their, wants are, you're able to communicate those to the different city departments and bring everybody together. That's a really interesting role. That's super interesting. What sort of drew you into public service in that way? Because it's not like sitting behind a desk every day and you may answer a call. Like, you are in the thick of it.
I really so I was a journalist before this, and what drew me to journalism was interacting with people, obviously. So I've always loved that. The other thing, it's just like a moral obligation for me. I want to live my life in service to my community. Journalism was one way for me to do that, but civic service is another amazing way for me to do that. Everybody who works in the city is amazing and really, really loves their community. That's one of the things I really try to communicate to community members who are frustrated sometimes with how slow things can go, because that's just life. Sometimes change takes time. The other thing that I really loved about journalism and that I knew I wanted in any career that I would do would be really getting out of the office, because I am a very antsy person. So if I'm not doing something a little bit different every day, it just starts to kind of wear on me. So I actually really like going out to the neighborhood association meetings in the evenings and kind of having a break in the middle of the day and coming back to it really, really refreshed and getting to interact with them, because most of the neighborhood associations meet in the night. So
they're not meeting 8 to 5.
Unfortunately, no. But yeah, so I really like that part of it. But yeah, I would say mostly a moral obligation to want to serve my community is something that I have been thinking about since I was in early high school. How can I incorporate that into my career?
Interesting. Well, and obviously this is one of the best roles you could have to do that.
I agree.
Yeah. And so what are some of the primary things that as a neighborhood services coordinator you do? Obviously, you said you're meeting with neighborhood groups and you are addressing their concerns and answering their questions and connecting them to city services. But are there certain projects or big things that you do every year that are part of your job?
Absolutely. There are several different things that we do throughout the year. You mentioned a few of them. I will go through a calendar year order.
Okay.
So in March to May, we have Leadership College, which is coming up. We are accepting applications for Leadership College. Leadership College is a 9-week course. It's like a crash course in Roanoke civics, and any community member can participate. You just have to fill out an online application form, which you can find at our Facebook page, which is Office of Neighborhood Services, Roanoke. And
just for a quick plug, because I was a big part of Leadership College last year before we had Molly. Leadership College, as someone who's worked in city government for almost 17 years, I learned so much just being a part of Leadership College, you get to interact with department directors and managers for every department. You get to talk to city management and the mayor and our elected officials like the commissioner of the revenue and the treasurer. And, you get so immersed in what the city can and does do for you. Just shameless plug.
Absolutely. I think the other really important thing that you learn in Leadership College is what the city can't do, and that's kind of where our neighborhoods come in. So
Absolutely.
if
Good
there's
call.
a problem that the city can't solve for you, that we don't have the resources, or maybe we're not legally allowed to step in, that's something that your neighborhood could mobilize around. So I think that's another really important thing to acknowledge and know. But I agree. I think Leadership College is amazing. In a perfect world, every city would do something like that, because it really does give residents the opportunity to actually meet face to face with the people who are running their community.
Absolutely.
One of the other things that we do every year is Neighborhood Month. We're doing a celebration in Neighborhood Month. The plans are still kind of under wraps, but I will say that if you keep an eye on our Facebook page, we should have some very exciting news coming out. We're really, really looking forward to Neighborhood Month this year. We have an event planned that we're really, really excited about. And we're going to have some smaller events throughout different neighborhoods, just trying to get people together and come out and talk to each other,
But
basically.
then also kind of one big exciting event.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And Neighborhood Month is May. So we're
Yes.
coming up on it.
Yes,
Leadership
absolutely.
College, Neighborhood Month.
And then after that, we have a little bit of a lull in the summer as we're gearing up for August, which is National Night Out, is the first Tuesday in August.
Yes, it is.
And the whole premise of that is to have as many neighborhood associations as possible basically just do a block party. That's what a lot of them do. They don't have to do that, but that's what a lot of them do. We had great turnout for National Night Out last year. I was very lucky. You were a big part of that, so thank you.
Thank you.
And that's just kind of an opportunity for people to get to know the neighborhood associations that are out there. So that's another big thing that my office helps organize every year. Then we kind of skip forward to December, which is when we do neighborhood awards. So every single year, the city accepts nominations for 8 different awards. One of them is the Citizen of the Year award, but 7 of them are specifically through my office, and they're neighborhood awards. You can nominate a person or a neighborhood association or even just a civic organization that has done really good work. We have different categories, there's neighborhood improvement, there's volunteer leadership, there's a number of different ones, communications, social media, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that is kind of how we round out the year. But then all year, we have the Neighborhood Development Grants Program, which we don't accept applications for a couple months. It's May and June, we don't accept applications. But the rest of the year, we are on a rolling grant cycle, and we are accepting applications all the time. So all you have to do is go to roanokeva.gov/neighborhood grants, and all of the information that you need is on there. We have 2 different types of neighborhood grants. One of them is for kind of bigger projects. The other one is kind of a Kickstarter kind of thing. Let's say you're a new neighborhood organization, or you're trying to organize a neighborhood organization and you need stuff like signs or mailers, that kind of thing. We have a smaller grant for those kinds of things. Yeah, I think that about covers it.
Can you give us an example of what type of project you might have for sort of the larger neighborhood grant? What would people want to apply for?
Absolutely. One example that comes to mind that was completed in 2023 is the Wasena Lights project. So there is as you're coming into the Wasena Village off the bridge, there is this really, really lovely, small cluster of shops, and they're all locally owned businesses, which is absolutely amazing.
Yes.
And there's some trees that line it. It's absolutely gorgeous, but it's a little dark at night. So what the neighborhood did was, and they were, trying to work to get some lighting down there, and it was just really difficult with the sidewalk placement because there's just not a ton of room between the road and the sidewalk there. So there really isn't anywhere to put a dedicated streetlight. So they said, okay, we're just going to take it upon ourselves, and worked with local businesses to hook up and set up streetlights along the trees in that little lane. It's 1 block. And it has completely transformed the atmosphere of that place downtown. Like, it's amazing.
So I drive through there on my way to and from home and work, and while I kind of hate the fact that it's dark when I get out of work in the winter, also driving through that sort of little downtown Wasena area, and the lights are on both sides, and those lights fit the vibe of Wasena. Like, I think if you had a regular street light there, it wouldn't work, but those lights in the trees they make it. I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely. So that's just one example of the kinds of projects that we do that have been done using those neighborhood development grant funds. Another example would be like tree plantings. If that's something that your group is interested in, trees cost a lot of money, believe it or not, and there's a lot of maintenance that goes into making them successful in the first few years. So that's another thing that you can apply for funds for. Really, any kind of neighborhood improvement project that you can think of. Old Southwest did a pocket park recently, and they're having great success with that. Anybody who's interested in replicating that, I really recommend you go look at Old Southwest's Facebook page. They have really chronicled the entire process. So it's kind of like a how-to guide of how to do your own pocket park. Yeah.
Well, and I kind of love the idea of like almost some friendly competition between neighborhoods to be like, what can we do to make our neighborhood, more successful, more beautiful, more appealing? And how does that stack up against some of the other projects? All, again, friendly competition. Yes. But I kind of like the thought of that.
Absolutely.
The last thing I kind of want to get into in regards to neighborhoods right now is the Roanoke Arts Commission is launching a new program this year, Arts Connect Neighborhoods. So I imagine that has something to do with you too. So can you kind of talk to us a little bit about Arts Connect Neighborhoods?
Absolutely. So I can't take any credit for this because the ball was already rolling on this when I got here. Doug Jackson and the Roanoke Arts Commission are amazing.
Shout out.
The cultural endowment is also amazing, and they have been a huge part of this. So I'm just kind of riding their coattails. But Arts Connect is absolutely amazing. For all of 2024, we have a catalog that has been developed by local artists of different art activities. Stuff from like yoga to like painting classes to how to trim your own bonsai tree. Literally anything you can think of are in this catalog, and any group, I think it's of at least eight families or like a neighborhood association, can apply to have any one of those activities come to them. It's completely free. The artist will bring all the supplies that you need, and it's just like, we're just trying to organize community around the arts, which I think is amazing. And I keep saying this, and I will keep saying this, I just think it's amazing when you look at the difference that a really tight-knit community in somebody's life can make. It has, astronomical impact on their like health long term. So I think that community is one of the ways that we can really start addressing some of the health disparities that we have in Roanoke, and that's amazing. So, if we can get people to organize around arts and form those tight-knit communities around arts, that's just amazing. Because who doesn't want to come together for like a pottery class?
Or like to improve your quality of life and improve the livability in your neighborhood. I mean, there have to be 100 or more different activities in this catalog.
There's a ton.
And we will link to the catalog when we post the show. However, the one that I'm going to shout out, and I do not remember the artist, so if you listen, I'm very sorry that I don't remember who you are, but I remember your project, because when I walk around downtown, I am always looking for the tiny doors that are painted on the sides of buildings and in alleyways. It's such a little Easter egg, and when you find them, when you see, and you feel a sense of community with everybody else who has seen those, because you know that so many people are walking around and they never pay attention to it at all. And so the artist will come to your neighborhood and help your neighborhood plot out, I think, like 3 or 4 different tiny doors in the neighborhood.
That's
and
awesome.
You can be a part of the process of painting it, which also brings like the community art feel of what John Mural does with his community murals. I just, that one, I would want to come to my neighborhood. I think I think it's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but art definitely is something that will bring the community together and leave a lasting impact on the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
So we're going to close our session out today. Well, before we get to the fun things and we close it out, is there anything you would like to leave our listeners with, or any last words you would like to give them about maybe how to join a neighborhood association or how to contact you if they feel like they want to?
If you are interested in joining a neighborhood organization, the number one best thing I can do is go to the GIS Roanoke site, and there is a layer on there for neighborhoods. If you go under layers and you go to planning and then it's neighborhood organizations, you check that little box, you should be able to figure out whatever neighborhood organization you're in. If you aren't already in one, please reach out to me. Again, my name is Molly Hunter. My email address is molly.hunter@roanokeva.gov. That's MOLLY, Molly, and then Hunter. And my phone number, my office phone number, which I'm happy to put out there, is 540-853-6006. Give me a call. If there isn't a neighborhood organization in your area, we can start one.
I love that. So we are going to finish off this this little section of the podcast with some fun questions. Fun for me, and I'll answer. I'll go through with you. But the first one, I just want to put you in hot water. Who's the best neighborhood association? No, I'm kidding.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't pick. I genuinely couldn't pick.
Just kidding. But it's like having a favorite kid. Like
Exactly.
But we'll never tell. No, I'm just kidding. So what is your favorite piece of public art in Roanoke? Since we just got off speaking about arts and neighborhoods, what is your favorite public art piece?
That's a really hard one. I'm going to have to say the mosaic that Multiverse Mosaics did it's kind of in the Riverdale area. It won the neighborhood arts award this year in 2023. I think that one's just gorgeous because I just love mosaics. That's honestly what it comes down to. I can't even imagine how long it must have taken them to do that. So probably that.
Okay. And for me, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am a John Mural fangirl, and the 9th Street Gateway murals with the beautiful purple background and the cedar waxwings and the street mapping of Southeast streets and neighborhoods. That one is still by far my favorite.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are so many good ones. There are so many good ones. I feel like eventually I'm going to have to pick something else, but it's going to have to be, it's going to have to hit me. Yeah.
And when I interviewed John Mural, when we unveiled that piece of art, I remember the conversation of how much time and effort it took to pick like the right shade of purple. Yeah. And when he originally said that, I was like, this is such an arty thing to say. But that shade of purple is what keeps me coming back to that being my favorite piece of art. So just somebody inspire me. Yeah. I need something to take the new top spot, but so far that's still it. What is your favorite park in the city of Roanoke?
Oh, it has to be the one that I live by, River's Edge Park. It's an amazing park. Our Parks Department literally won an award for this park. So
they've won many awards for this park.
Yes. So it's connect to the Greenway. I can get to the Blueway if I want to on there. Yeah. The one that I live by.
Okay. My favorite park in the city would actually have to be Wasena Park.
That's a good one.
Simply because of access to the Greenway, access to Wasena Village. You're coming right around to Smith Park and River's Edge. Like it feels like the gateway to me to more parks. But yeah, Wasena would have to be my favorite.
It's a good one.
Okay. You had to choose. You're up on Mill Mountain. Selfie in front of the Roanoke Star or selfie in front of the Overlook with the city behind you? So are you taking your selfie with the star behind you or with the city behind you?
Probably the city, honestly, because I just love it. Especially, if it's at night, definitely the city.
Okay.
Yeah. During the day, I might do the star.
And see, I am the exact opposite.
Really?
I want the city behind me in the day with like the clouds, the mountains. I love the fact that you have the city in the middle, but then the mountains are back there, sort of, caging us in a little bit, holding us in the city. And then at night with like the star lit up behind you. I like that, but that's why we have these questions, because everything is so subjective and there's so much that's great about our city for
there absolutely is.
Whatever you like. What has been the most surprising city department that you've had to work with? And you can take surprising in any way. Like you didn't realize you were going to work with them, or you didn't realize like what they did when you did start working with them, or to the links. What's the most surprising?
Hold on, I'm going to take a drink of water. That's a
thinker. While you think about that, mine, shout out stormwater. I never thought I would work so much with stormwater and learn so much about what they do for our blueways. I didn't even realize it was a thing. And then I started working here and I was like, oh my God, stormwater does everything. They're amazing. It's everywhere. And especially in a city that is on a river, yes. It's so important. So yeah, stormwater was the most surprising department for me.
Most surprising. That's a really hard one. I'm gonna go with solid waste, which is part of Public Works, because those people have so much pride for their department and they are so proud of the work that they do. You don't realize, like, every single one of the people who works in solid waste is personally invested in keeping the city clean and healthy and safe. And if you talk to any of them, they will tell you that. One of the things that they say all the time is we're the only department in Roanoke that touches every single household every week. And that's true, they do. So probably solid waste, just because I wasn't expecting so much like pride from them. But they are really, really proud of the work that they do. And they should be. It's amazing work.
I agree. I also think with solid waste, I actually had a lady reach out to me through our social media accounts with the city because her son loves the trash trucks.
Yes.
Like loves them with a passion, and like literally waits on the sidewalk every day to wave at them and like run beside them while they're picking up the trash. It's the sweetest thing I've ever seen. Oh, yeah. And I think that especially for a lot of like little kids, you forget that like people want to grow up to be firemen and policemen and drive the trash truck. Like those are the things that they see taking care of their city.
Yes.
And how sweet and nice the individuals, the solid waste drivers are to those kids and how they interact with the neighborhoods. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And their commitment is just above and beyond. Like some of those guys will like literally take time, and that goes for code enforcement as well. Well, they'll just take time out of their personal lives to go clean up parts of the city. Like if there's a stop sign that's overgrown, they will come by after work to fix those things. That's just amazing.
I 100% agree. Okay, last question, and it's because on If You Know, we low-key try to be a food podcast. Where's your favorite place to eat in Roanoke for less than $15?
For less than $15?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's hard.
There's some good ones.
There are a lot of really good ones. I'm going to go with Hatch. Their mac and cheese is amazing.
It far exceeded my expectations for a place that sells chicken. You're kind of like, oh, what are you going to do? It was great. It was an amazing meal. And for that matter, while I shout out Hatch, any of the restaurants, and especially our locally owned restaurants in the market building, I don't think you can go wrong. You can walk in and kind of have a taste of anything right then and there. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Molly. We appreciate you coming in today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And since today's episode is all about neighborhoods, when you're in your neighborhood and you're in your home, the one thing that's always going to be there, that you hope is always there, is the water. And in today's episode, we're talking with Sarah Baumgardner from the Western Virginia Water Authority. Sarah, on our podcast, we like to let people introduce themselves. So if you could let our listeners know a little bit about you and the company you work for.
Well, thanks. I'm the Public Relations Director for the Western Virginia Water Authority, and we are the utility that provides the drinking water for the residents and businesses here in the Roanoke Valley, including the city of Roanoke, and we also treat all the wastewater.
The Water Authority is relatively new, is it not? I mean, not like last year, but the Water Authority hasn't been around for forever, has it?
So we're going to be celebrating our 20th anniversary this summer.
Yay!
And so 20 years ago, the city of Roanoke and Roanoke County came together to form this new utility to provide the water and wastewater service. And since then, we've expanded. Franklin County and Botetourt County, the town of Vinton, and the town of Ben's Mill have all become part of our service area.
That's a very large footprint.
It is. We have about 69,000 customers and a service area that is larger than the state of Rhode Island.
Interesting. That's really cool. So what are some of the things in public relations for the Water Authority that you specifically take care of?
So we like to share the story of what we're doing, whether it be new infrastructure projects, new water lines going in, or replacement projects. Most people don't think about how we treat water or wastewater, so we like to share that through tours or just talking about it. A lot of people just kind of think it just magically appears at your faucet. You turn on the handle and out comes water. So we like to let people know really what is their source, how do we treat and clean it, how is it distributed through this vast network of pipes, and then after they're finished with it and people pour it back down a drain, how do we treat that water again so that it can be beneficial to our community?
Perfect. And that sort of segues us into one of the things I'd like to talk to you about today, which is any type of upcoming projects that might be happening in or around the city that our residents may want to be aware of.
So we have a very aggressive capital improvement plan where we look at water lines, sewer lines, and infrastructure needs in our community. And we kind of evaluate existing infrastructure based on age, but also what is the break history, what is some development needs, what is improvements that need to be made to pipes. So we're currently doing some projects out on Orange Avenue to replace a 1950s era cast iron pipe. A lot of people may be familiar with some breaks that have happened in that area. We're putting in new pipes, so that won't be the norm anymore.
Not happening anymore, yeah.
We're getting ready to do some projects in the Melrose area. We just received a grant from the Department of Health for about $9 million worth of infrastructure improvements, where a lot of 2-inch and maybe 4-inch galvanized pipes are going to be replaced with 8-inch pipes.
So a lot more water coming through there.
A lot better flow, better fire protection, and really better water quality of coming through these newer pipes.
And when those projects happen, I imagine that they are, when I say long term, they would take a couple weeks or a couple of months to take care of. You're digging into the ground to get to those pipes. So we could have some street closures during that time and some detours. But then afterwards we would come through, and I believe, especially maybe in the Melrose area, we were kind of working with the Water Authority to have the city's paving program coincide with that work being done, so we can have sort of seamless services in those areas.
Exactly. We work really closely with the city of Roanoke to see what the paving plan is in the future, so that we can go in ahead of the paving and put in new water infrastructure. And then when the paving happens during the restoration phase, it's brand new paving that's being put down. So it's a real benefit for the entire community.
And that way we're not having to pave something that's going to get ripped up a month later. And on the opposite side, we're kind of making sure that we're not hitting this neighborhood twice. We're getting the water and the paving all done at the same time, feeling more like a one-stop shop than we had the water here and now, 2 months later we're coming in and paving here. It's just a seamless process.
Right, because we realize that any of these infrastructure projects can be, they're a bit disruptive, but if we can coordinate and make it seamless, then it's less time that we're in the neighborhoods.
And it can feel inconvenient while we're there, but in the long term, it's going to be such a benefit to the neighbors, both just for, as you said, fire protection, but to have a better water flow, better water quality even. Yeah. Like with those cast iron pipes, I think I grew up with a well in the county, and we had iron in our water. And do you know if the cast iron pipes create the same type of I know when I had well water, you could even smell the iron in my hair. Is that something that happens with cast iron pipes, or am I confusing that?
So the cast iron pipes don't tend to have the same iron taste, but what we find with some of the older galvanized pipes is they do tend to kind of corrode on the inside, and it ends up reducing the diameter of that pipe.
Gotcha.
So you may start with a 2-inch diameter, but over the decades that may be down to only about 3/4 of an inch, which really impacts the flow and the pressure of the water. So I think some of the people in the Melrose area that may have been making decisions about, I can take a shower or I can wash my clothes, but I can't do both at the same time, they're going to be able to do both of those at the same time.
Helpful. Thank you for that example, because I was like, how is this going to really impact the resident? And that's perfect, because I've definitely been in that situation where you're like, oh, do we have the dishwasher on and wash clothes, or do we do one or the other? That's perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so that would be great.
Yeah. Okay, so this is our neighborhood episode. We're trying to make sure that some of our neighborhoods are aware of things that are going on around the city, but also we want to give them some tips on things that are happening. And since it's January and it's cold, we were kind of wondering, what type of tips could the Water Authority provide us for our customers in regards to best practices for their pipes and for not causing any type of water damage?
Right. So cold weather plumbing tips are something that are really practical and can really prevent major problems in your home. So first of all, it's good to note that the Western Virginia Water Authority owns and maintains all the water lines up to and including the meter. But from the meter, which is really close to your street, to your house and throughout the interior of your house, that's the homeowner's responsibility. But we're kind of the water experts, so we want to give them the tips on what they can do to protect their plumbing, their internal plumbing, and the water coming into their house. And when it gets cold, pipes can freeze, and there are ways that you can minimize that chance of that happening, and we can give you some tips on what to do if you should have a frozen pipe.
Worst case scenario, being the water experts, pipes freezing, what does that lead to? What does that look like for someone?
So if a interior plumbing pipe is to freeze, you're going to go and you're going to turn on the faucet and no water's going to come out. And if you check your other faucets and maybe the bathrooms have flowing water but the kitchen faucet doesn't, that means that probably that kitchen faucet pipe is frozen. When water freezes, it expands. And if it's frozen water in a pipe and there's nowhere to go, it's going to push out on that pipe and it's going to break the pipe or put a crack in that pipe. You may not notice this right away, but then as that water does thaw, then it's going to escape through that break and you're going to have flowing water inside your house, through the cabinets, on the floor. It can cause a lot of damage. So we want to give you some tips to, one, prevent that pipe from freezing in the first place, and what to do in case something does freeze.
This just takes me back to Christmas 2022 when we had that very, very cold snap and my power was out, and all I remember is having my fireplace on downstairs and then setting each one of my faucets to like slowly drip out water. Is that the right thing to do? Or tip-wise, what should someone do in that situation?
Yeah, so that is a very good tip, to leave a little bit of water flowing, just a little tiny drip. And if you're worried about, am I going to be wasting water, put some sort of container underneath that little drip and collect it. And you can drink that. You can water your plants with it. You can give it to your pets. But moving water is not as likely to freeze. So that little bit of flow, not only does it kind of create the movement of water through the pipe, but it also gives a little bit of expansion room so that if the water should start to freeze, there's some room to expand. So other good tips is, if you do have power in your house and your house is warm, open up the cabinets, particularly if it's plumbing that's on an outside wall. And a lot of kitchen faucets do tend to be on outside walls. Open up those cabinets to allow the warmth from the room to get around those pipes, and that will help them not freeze. We even open up our dishwasher at our house because the dishwasher plumbing's on the outside of the wall, and that allows warmth to get around that plumbing.
Excellent. I did not do that. That's a great tip. I would have thought of that.
These little simple steps can prevent a lot of heartache and expense down the road. If you have plumbing faucets on the outside of your home, turn them off. Disconnect any hoses because you don't want the water in the hose to freeze. And a really, really good tip is find your main water valve.
How do I do that?
So everybody has a main water valve that controls the flow of the water into their house. And the reason I say this is the most important tip is if you should have a broken water line, water is flowing in your house, you need to know where it is. And you need everybody to know where it is, because you may be dealing with the immediate emergency of water flowing and you're telling somebody else in your house, go turn off the water, and they need to know where it is. So the main water valve tends to be where the water enters your house. So this tends to be in a basement. So if the water comes in the basement, near your water heater, near your washing machine in the basement, you will see pipe coming through the wall and there's a faucet handle on it. Clearly mark that. You can mark it with a ribbon. The Water Authority has some hang tags we'll be happy to send to people. We sent these out through bills last year to people. Stick it on there. It's brightly colored so people know where it is. If you don't have a basement, you're on a crawl space or on a slab, then your main water valve is probably in the supply closet, utility closet, where the water heater and washing machine is.
Gotcha. So really look for those big water using appliances, the water heater, the washing machine. I had to have some work done to my hot water heater, and the technician who came in to do that, they marked my main water valve.
Great.
I've got a little tag on that, and I never took it off because
Right,
now anyone knows if I have guests or another person in my home, they obviously know where it is too. That's excellent.
Yeah,
and so if it was cold enough and we didn't want to drip the water, would turning the main water valve off and sort of running water till it runs out in your home do the same thing, or is that not a good tip?
No, that's a good tip, particularly if you are going out of town.
Okay.
And you know you're not going to be using any water in your home and it's forecasted to be cold, then turn off the main water valve in your house and open up the faucets and let them run until they're empty, and then you can turn them back off. That means that there is no water in any of the internal plumbing pipes in your house. So there's no way for the water to freeze because the water doesn't exist in those pipes right then. And then when you come back home from your vacation, you can turn the main water valve back on. So that is a good tip, and that's a good way to kind of temporarily winterize your house while you're going to be gone for a short period of time.
Absolutely. So a lot of the tips are very dependent on whether or not you have power, whether or not you're going to be there. There's many ways that you can help with that cold water plumbing.
Exactly. Right.
And for people who may be concerned about their water bill, say they're like, if I leave my faucet dripping, all night, or multiple faucets dripping, what would that do to my water bill? Is there anything we can assure them on with what that looks like?
So a really small drip, and we're looking at the drip, not a steady stream.
Yep.
Is not going to add a tremendous amount to your bill, because you're probably only going to be doing this at night, or for just, if it's really cold during the day, just for a short period of time. And again, I would say put a water pitcher, put something under there, collect that water, and then use that. Use it for drinking, use it for your pets, use it to water your plants. You can even pour it into a toilet and it will flush the toilet. So you can kind of use that water instead of using other water, and it will balance out your bill.
Well, and I think in the same token, a few, a couple extra dollars on your water bill would pale in comparison to a burst pipe that now could either need to be repaired or could cause damage into your home that you would have to take care of. Absolutely. Well, Sarah, we really appreciate you being here today. And if anyone has any questions about cold water plumbing or about the Western Virginia Water Authority, how can they reach out to the Water Authority?
So we have all this information on our website, www.westernvawater.org/cold weather. We have that information. People can call us and get these tips. We will be sharing them on social media. Every time it gets cold, we put out information about how to find your main water valve, what your cold weather tips can do. And if you do have any questions, we are the water experts. We're happy to help you. Give us a call.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And that's going to be a wrap for us this month on If You Know, You Know. Make sure that you follow along, like, review, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.